My name is Irene Woulette, and I'm 32 years old. 5 years ago, my sister told my parents that I had left medical school. It was not true, but that one lie was enough to cost me my entire family. They stopped speaking to me. They blocked my number. They did not come to my residency graduation. They were not there when I got married. For 5 years, I was no longer their daughter. Then, last month, my sister was brought into the emergency room in critical condition. The medical team called for the chief surgeon. The doors opened, and when my mother saw the name stitched on the white coat walking toward her daughter's stretcher, she grabbed my father's arm so tightly that it left marks. Before I tell you what happened next, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly speaks to you. And write your location and local time in the comments. I really want to know where you are watching from right now. Now let me take you back to the fall of 2019, to a kitchen table in Hartford, Connecticut, and to the last time my father ever looked at me with pride. There were 2 daughters in the Woulette family, but only one ever seemed to shine. My older sister, Monica, was 3 years ahead of me and had always known how to command a room. School plays, student council, family dinners, neighborhood events. Monica could speak to anyone, charm anyone, and somehow make every adult believe she was the most impressive person they had ever met. My parents, Jerry and Diane Woulette, were hardworking middle-class people from Hartford, Connecticut. My father managed a manufacturing plant, and my mother worked part-time as a bookkeeper. They cared deeply about 2 things: how things looked from the outside and whether their children followed the rules. Monica gave them exactly what they wanted. She was polished, confident, obedient, and always ready to perform. I was different. I was the quiet daughter, the one sitting with a biology textbook during Thanksgiving while Monica entertained everyone at the table. I was not wild. I was not difficult. I simply did not know how to compete for attention in a house where the spotlight had already been claimed, and there is a difference between being overlooked and never truly being seen at all. I still remember 8th grade. I made it to the state science fair, the only student from my school to qualify. That same weekend, Monica had a community theater performance. Guess which event my parents attended? When I came home with a second-place ribbon, my father glanced at it for half a second and said, "That's nice, Irene." He did not ask what my project was about. He never asked. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself I did not need applause, so I buried myself in schoolwork, AP classes, applications, and long nights of studying. I decided that if I could not be the daughter they naturally noticed, then I would become the daughter they could not ignore. And for one brief, unforgettable moment, I was. The day I was accepted into the medical program at Oregon Health and Science University, 3,000 miles away from Hartford, something changed. For the first time in my life, my father looked at me, really looked at me, and said 5 words I had waited 18 years to hear. But I will get to that. First, you need to understand what Monica did when she realized the attention was no longer on her. The acceptance letter arrived on a Tuesday in April. I remember because Monica was visiting that weekend. She was 22 then, working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-level company in Stamford. It was a decent job and a decent life. But decent was never enough for Monica, even if she would never admit it. My father read the letter at the kitchen table. His eyebrows lifted as he scanned the page. "Oregon Health and Science," he said slowly, as if the words surprised him. "That's a real medical school." Then he looked at me. "Maybe you'll make something of yourself after all, Irene." It was not exactly warm. It was not exactly praise. But coming from him, it felt like the closest thing I had ever received, and I held on to it like it was oxygen. That night, my mother called Aunt Ruth. Then she called her sister. Then she called 2 neighbors. "Irene got into medical school," she kept saying. "Can you believe it?" There was something in her voice I had almost never heard when she spoke about me. Pride. Real pride. At dinner, I looked across the table at Monica. She was smiling, but only with her mouth. Her eyes were doing something else entirely. They were studying, measuring, calculating. I understand that now. Back then, I thought she was just tired from the drive. That week, Monica started calling me more often. 2, sometimes 3 times a week. "How's packing going? Do you know who your roommate is? What's Portland like?" She asked about my schedule, my classmates, my professors. She remembered every name I mentioned. For the first time, I thought my sister was finally seeing me. I thought maybe getting into medical school had changed something between us. Maybe it had opened a door to respect, closeness, or whatever normal sisters are supposed to have. What I did not realize was that I was handing Monica everything she needed, every detail, every name, every weakness, every private part of my life. And I gave it to her willingly, with a grateful smile, because I wanted to believe my sister finally cared. By my 3rd year of medical school, my world began to fall apart. My roommate and my closest friend was Sarah Mitchell. Sarah had grown up in foster care. She did not have parents waiting for her, siblings checking in, or relatives she could call when life became too heavy. She had me. And honestly, during my 1st year of medical school, I had her too. There was one week when I was drowning in anatomy exams and called home, desperate to hear something comforting. My mother answered and said, "I can't talk right now, Irene. Monica is having a difficult day at work." I hung up, feeling completely alone. Sarah found me sitting on our apartment floor and said, "That's their loss. Now get up. We still have anatomy to memorize." That was Sarah. She did not feel sorry for me. She pulled me back to my feet. In August of my 3rd year, Sarah was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. She had no family beside her, no safety net, no one to sit with her in waiting rooms, help her understand medical updates, or drive her home after treatment. So I went to the dean's office the next morning and explained everything. The leave was official. 1 semester, caregiver status, paperwork completed. My place in the program held. I would return in January. Nothing about it was reckless. Nothing about it was secret. Everything was documented and approved. I moved into the spare bedroom at Sarah's apartment. I drove her to treatments. I sat beside her in the oncology ward at 3 a.m. when things became unbearable. I held her hand through the hardest hours of her life because there was no one else there to do it. And then I called Monica. I still do not know why. Maybe some part of me still believed in the version of her she had been pretending to be. I told her about Sarah. I told her about the leave of absence. I told her I was going back in the spring. Monica's voice became soft and sweet. "Oh my God, Irene, I'm so sorry," she said. "Take all the time you need. I won't say anything to Mom and Dad. They would only worry." 3 days later, she called them. I do not know exactly what she said that night. I would not understand the full size of her lie until 5 years later, when the truth came out in the one place none of us ever expected. But the damage happened immediately. The call came at 11 at night. I was sitting in a plastic chair beside Sarah's hospital bed. She had reacted badly to her latest treatment, and the doctors wanted to keep her overnight. Then my phone lit up. "Dad, your sister told us everything." His voice was cold, empty. About leaving school, about the boyfriend, all of it. "Dad, that's not true." "Monica showed us the messages," he said. "She showed us proof." I pressed one hand against the wall just to steady myself. What messages? What proof? "Dad, I'm in a hospital right now. I'm taking care of my friend." "Monica said you would say that." There was a pause. "She said you would already have an excuse prepared." Then my mother came on the line. Her voice was trembling. "How could you lie to us for an entire year, Irene?" "Mom, please listen to me. I filed an official leave of absence. I can send you the paperwork. I can give you the dean's number." "Enough." My father's voice returned, sharper this time. "Do not call this house again until you are ready to be honest. You have embarrassed this family enough." Then the call ended. I sat on the hospital floor for 20 minutes. Behind the curtain, Sarah's IV machine kept beeping softly. My phone screen still showed the call length, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That was all it took for my parents to remove me from their lives. 20 minutes later, Monica sent me a text. "I'm sorry, Irene, I had to tell them. I couldn't keep your secret anymore." She was not sorry. She had just made the most calculated move of her life and signed it with a broken heart emoji. I was 3,000 miles away from Hartford. I had $46 in my checking account. My closest friend was fighting for every bit of strength she had left, and just like that I became no one's daughter. But I tried. I need you to understand that. I tried everything I could from 3,000 miles away, with almost no money and a critically ill friend in the next room. Over the next 5 days, I called my parents 14 times. The first 3 calls went to voicemail. By the 4th, my father had blocked my number. 2 days later, my mother blocked me too. I sent 2 emails. One was short, one was long. The long one had my official leave of absence paperwork attached as a PDF. I included the dean's direct phone number. I included Sarah's oncologist's name. I gave them every piece of proof any reasonable person would need. Neither email got an answer. Then I wrote a handwritten letter and mailed it priority from Portland. 5 days later, it came back. Return to sender. Unopened. And I knew my mother's handwriting the moment I saw it on the envelope. I called Aunt Ruth, my father's younger sister. She was the only person in our family who had ever made me feel like I mattered just as much as Monica. Ruth called my father that same evening. I know because she called me back 40 minutes later, and I could hear the weight in her voice. "He told me to stay out of it, sweetheart," she said quietly. "He said you made your choice." She had tried to explain the leave of absence. She had tried to tell him that everything was official, documented, and temporary. My father ended the call before she could finish. 5 days. 14 calls. 2 emails. 1 handwritten letter. 1 person trying to speak for me. Every attempt was ignored, blocked, or sent back. And that was when I finally understood something. This was not new. This was the same pattern I had lived with my entire life, only now it was louder and more painful than ever. Every science fair they missed, every event they forgot, every time Monica's version of the truth was accepted immediately while mine was treated like an inconvenience. This was just the final version of something that had always been there. On the 6th day, I stopped calling. Not because I had stopped caring, because I realized they had made their choice long before Monica ever told that lie. She had only given them a reason to stop pretending. Sarah passed away on a Sunday morning in December. It was quiet, just the soft sound of the monitor, the pale winter light through the window, and me sitting beside her. I was the only person in the room. No one from my family called, no one knew. The only person I had told was Monica, and she was too busy protecting the story she had created to care that the reason behind my leave of absence was now gone. I arranged a small memorial for Sarah. 6 people came. Her former foster sister drove up from Eugene. A couple of classmates showed up. 1 nurse from the oncology ward came too, because Sarah had somehow made an impression on everyone who cared for her. I stood at the front of a chapel built for 60 people and read my farewell to rows of empty seats. I did not cry. Not because I was not broken, because I had been crying for 3 months, and by then there was nothing left. That night, I sat alone in Sarah's apartment. Our apartment. Her coffee mug was still on the counter. Her jacket still hung by the door. I opened my laptop and stared at the form to return for the spring semester. Then I found something tucked inside Sarah's copy of Grey's Anatomy. It had been one of our running jokes. She had bookmarked the chapter on the pancreas with a yellow sticky note that said, "Rude." Inside was a card. Her handwriting was shaky, but every word was deliberate. "Finish what you started, Irene. Become the doctor I know you are. And don't you dare let anyone, especially your own family, decide who you get to be." She had written it weeks before she passed. She knew she would not be there when I needed that push. I closed the laptop. Then I opened it again, and I filled out the re-enrollment form. There were only 2 choices in front of me. This is in fall apart or rise. I chose to rise, not for my parents, not to prove anything to Monica. I chose it for Sarah and for the version of me she still believed in when I could barely believe in myself. I went back in January. No family support, no safety net. No one sending money, checking in, or asking whether I was okay. I took out extra student loans. I worked part-time as a research assistant. I ate hospital cafeteria leftovers more times than I will ever admit. Medical school does not pause because your personal life has collapsed. Exams do not wait because your family walked away from you. 12-hour clinical rotations do not become easier because you spent the night quietly breaking down in a supply closet. So eventually, I stopped breaking down. And I started working. I worked like my life depended on it, because in many ways it did. I graduated on time. No one from Hartford came. I matched into a surgical residency at Mercy Rest Medical Center on the East Coast, one of the busiest emergency hospitals in Connecticut. That was where I met Dr. Margaret Thornton. Maggie was 58, chief of surgery emeritus, and somehow both terrifying and comforting at the same time. She was built like steel, wrapped in a white coat, and she saw through excuses faster than anyone I had ever met. She became the mentor I desperately needed, and in a way, the mother figure I had lost. During my 3rd year of residency, I met Nathan Caldwell. He was a civil rights attorney doing pro bono work at a community clinic near the hospital. Calm eyes, dry humor, the kind of steady presence you do not realize you need until it is standing right in front of you. He was the first person I told the full story to. He did not interrupt. He did not look uncomfortable. He did not pity me or try to fix it. He just listened. And when I finished, he said 4 words. "You deserve better, Irene." That was enough. We got married on a Saturday afternoon in Maggie's backyard. 30 guests. Nathan's father walked me down the aisle. I had sent an invitation to Hartford. It came back the same way my letter had, unopened. But Aunt Ruth was there, and she cried enough for 2 parents. After the ceremony, Maggie handed me a sealed envelope. "A nomination," she said. "Do not open it yet. You are not ready." I tucked it into my desk drawer without asking questions. Then 5 years passed, and I became someone my family would not even recognize. Now I need to pause for a moment. If you have ever been in a situation where your family refused to hear your side, where the truth did not matter because someone else's story was louder, drop a fire emoji in the comments. And if you think my parents are going to regret what they did, type karma. Because what happened next? Even I never saw it coming. January present day. I am 32 years old now, and I am the chief of trauma surgery at Mercy Rest Medical Center. I have a house in the suburbs with a porch that catches the softest morning light. I have a husband who makes me laugh every single day. And I have a golden retriever named Hippocrates, Hippo for short, who has never once judged me for eating cereal at midnight. It is a good life. A real life. One I built myself, brick by brick, after everything I thought I needed was taken from me. But there is a certain kind of ache that never completely disappears. It settles somewhere deep in your chest, in the empty space where family is supposed to be. I do not wake up crying anymore. I do not stare at my phone hoping to see a Hartford number calling. But every Thanksgiving, there is always one small moment when I set the table, count the plates, and feel the absence like something that still belongs there. Aunt Ruth still calls me every Sunday. She is the only thread I have left to that old life. I never ask about them, not directly, but when she tells me things, I listen. Mom and Dad are healthy. Monica got divorced 2 years ago. She sells medical devices now. Believe me, the irony did not escape me. Last week, Ruth called with a different tone in her voice. Careful. Nervous. "Irene," she said, "there is something I need to tell you about Monica. Something that worries me." But before she could finish, my hospital pager went off. Emergency activation. I told Ruth I would call her back. I never got the chance, because what Ruth was trying to warn me about was already on its way, moving down I-91 in a sedan that was moments away from running a red light. And within the hour, the person Ruth wanted to talk about would be in my hospital, in critical condition with my parents sitting in the waiting room and my name written on the chart. I just did not know it yet. But let me step back for a moment, because what Monica did was not just one lie, it was a full campaign. Over the years, Aunt Ruth had given me pieces of the truth, slowly, carefully, reluctantly, as if each detail was something dangerous she had to handle with both hands. And the picture she painted was worse than anything I had imagined. For 5 years, Monica kept the story alive. At every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every family gathering, she played the role of the heartbroken older sister. "We don't really talk about Irene," she would tell cousins. "It is too painful for Mom and Dad." Then she would lower her voice, shake her head, and let the silence do the rest. But silence was never enough for Monica. She added details. She told our grandmother that I had nowhere stable to live. She told Uncle Pete's wife that she had heard from mutual friends I was struggling and getting help. She told our mother on Christmas Eve 2 years ago that she had tried to reach out to me, but I refused to answer. She made it sound like I was the one who walked away. She completely reversed the story. Ruth told me once, her voice tight with anger, that Monica stood at Thanksgiving and said, "I have begged Irene to come home. She will not even answer my calls. I think she hates us." Meanwhile, I was 3 floors deep in an operating room, fighting to save a teenager's life. That was the twisted brilliance of it, and I use that word with disgust. Monica did not need my parents to forget me. She needed them to believe I had left them behind. That way, their pain became proof. Their silence became justified. And she remained exactly who she had always wanted to be, the loyal daughter, the only daughter who stayed. She was not protecting them. She was protecting her place. And there was one more thing Ruth told me later, something that made the whole picture even darker, but I will get to that. Nathan told me something over coffee one morning 6 months ago. He had kept it from me for 2 years. "There is something I never told you," he said. He set his mug down carefully, the way he always does when he is about to say something difficult. 2 years ago, I got a call from HR at your old hospital. Someone using a fake name contacted them asking about your employment status. I stared at him. "They asked if you had ever been disciplined," he continued. "They wanted to know if your credentials were real." My hands went still around my coffee cup. "Who was it?" "I had a colleague look into the inquiry," Nathan said. "The IP address came back to Hartford." The kitchen went silent. Ipo's tail thumped softly against the floor. The coffee maker hissed behind us. "She was looking for something," I said. Nathan nodded. "Anything. Anything she could use to keep the story alive. Anything that could make you look like a fraud." "But she did not find anything." "No," he said, "because there was nothing to find." I wrapped both hands around my mug and felt the heat press through the ceramic. "She did not just lie about me once, Nathan," I said quietly. "She has been searching for a way to keep that lie alive." He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. "That is not normal sister rivalry, Irene," he said. "That is something else entirely." And he was right. Monica had not told one lie and moved on. She had built an entire structure out of deception, walls, beams, foundations, and for 5 years she had done everything she could to keep it standing. Every holiday story, every whispered rumor, every fake inquiry, every performance of concern. All of it was another brick. I could have done something back then. I could have called a lawyer. I could have confronted my parents. I could have dragged the truth into the open and forced everyone to look at what Monica had done. But I did not, because life was already preparing to expose her in a way I never could have planned. It would be public, it would be painful. And it would be so painfully ironic that, even now, part of me still cannot believe it happened. It started with a pager at 3:07 in the morning. Thursday night, January. The sound pulled me out of a deep sleep. Nathan shifted beside me and mumbled something half awake. Ipo lifted his head from the foot of the bed, watching me like he already knew something was wrong. The pager screen glowed in the dark. Level 1 trauma. Single vehicle collision. Female, 35. Serious abdominal injuries. Unstable vitals. Arrival in 8 minutes. I was dressed in 4 minutes. In the car by 6. The streets were empty and wet, covered in that deep winter darkness Connecticut gets in January when even the streetlights look tired. As I drove, my mind moved into surgeon mode. Type of impact, possible organ damage, immediate risks, surgical options, a single vehicle crash, severe abdominal trauma, unstable vitals. It pointed toward major internal injury, possibly the spleen, possibly the liver, maybe both. I had handled cases like this more times than I could count. I entered through the ambulance bay, badged in, and walked straight toward the trauma unit. My team was already gathering, 2 residents, a trauma nurse, anesthesia waiting nearby. At the charge nurse station, I picked up the intake tablet and opened the incoming patient chart. Patient: Monica Woulette. Date of birth: March 14, 1990. Emergency contact: Gerald Woulette. Father. I stopped walking. For a moment, the entire hospital seemed to pull away from me. The monitors, the intercom, the footsteps, the wheels rolling across the floor, all of it faded into the background. For 2 seconds, maybe 3, I was not the chief of trauma surgery. I was 26 years old again, sitting on a hospital floor in Portland, holding my phone after my father ended the call that changed everything. "Dr. Woulette?" My charge nurse, Linda, appeared beside me. "You okay?" I blinked, looked up, and placed the tablet down. "I'm fine," I said. "Prep Bay 2 and page Dr. Patel. I want him on standby." The ambulance siren grew louder outside, and before I even saw them, I knew who would be right behind it. The two people I had not faced in 5 years. The ambulance doors opened, and the stretcher came in fast. Monica was strapped down, unconscious, an oxygen mask over her face, her breathing shallow. Her shirt was stained from the crash, and one hand hung loosely over the side rail. The paramedics spoke quickly, dropping pressure, rising pulse, fluids running, condition unstable. Behind them came my parents. My mother looked like she had aged 10 years in one night. Her hair was thinner than I remembered, her face pale and drawn. She was wearing a bathrobe, and her slippers were on the wrong feet. My father wore a flannel shirt and jeans that looked like he had thrown them on without thinking. His face had no color. "That's my daughter!" he shouted past the triage nurse. "Where are they taking her? I need to speak to the doctor in charge." Carla, one of the nurses I had worked with for years, stepped in front of him and raised both hands gently. "Sir, family needs to wait in the surgical waiting area. The trauma team is already here. The chief is handling this personally." "The chief?" my father snapped. "Then get me the chief, now." Carla glanced through the glass partition into the trauma bay. She saw me standing there in gown and gloves, my badge clipped to my scrubs. Then she read the name. For a fraction of a second, her eyes widened. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. "Not now." Carla pulled herself together instantly. "Sir, the chief is preparing for surgery," she said. "You will be updated as soon as possible. Please, the waiting room is this way." My parents were led down the hall. My mother was whispering prayers under her breath, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. My father kept turning back, trying to look through every window he passed. "She's all we have," he said, not really to anyone. "Please, she's all we have." I heard it through the glass, every word, "She's all we have," as if I had never existed at all. I stepped into the scrub room alone. I gave myself 30 seconds. That was all. I turned on the faucet and let the hot water run over my hands. Then I looked at my reflection in the stainless steel above the sink. It was warped and stretched like everything in that moment. Scrub cap on, badge visible. The face of a woman who had been removed from her own family's life, now being asked to save the person who helped make it happen. Part of me wanted to walk out, to call Dr. Patel and let him take over, to let my parents owe Monica's life to a stranger instead of to the daughter they had thrown away. That would have been easier, cleaner, safer. But there was a patient on that table with major internal injuries. Her condition was getting worse by the minute, and we were running out of time. And whatever Monica had done to me, I was still a surgeon. So I scrubbed in. She had maybe 30 to 40 minutes before her chances dropped to almost nothing. And the person most qualified to operate in that building was me. I paged Dr. Patel myself. "I have a conflict of interest," I said. "The patient is a family member. I'm disclosing it now, and I want it documented in the chart. If there is even a moment where my judgment seems affected, you take over. No questions asked." Patel's voice was steady. "Understood, Chief." I told Linda to document the disclosure in the nursing record, too. Everything had to be done correctly. Everything had to be on paper. Then I put on a fresh pair of gloves, pushed through the operating room doors, and looked down at the table. Monica's face was bruised. The oxygen mask kept fogging, then clearing with each shallow breath. She looked smaller than I remembered. Thinner. There were lines around her eyes that had not been there 5 years ago. For 3 seconds, she was not the sister who had destroyed my life. She was a patient on my table, and that was exactly what I needed her to be. "Let's begin," I said. "Scalpel." 3 hours and 40 minutes. That was how long it took to repair what the crash had done. Her spleen was beyond saving, so we removed it. Her liver had a serious injury, and we repaired it carefully, one precise layer at a time. There were 2 separate damaged vessels that had to be controlled fast. I did not speak unless I had to. Suction. Clamp. Lap pad. Retract. My hands moved the way years of training had taught them to move, steady, focused, fast when speed mattered, slow when precision mattered more. The residents watched in silence. They always watched during my cases, but I could feel their attention sharpen when the liver repair became difficult. I did not hesitate. I could not afford to. At 6:48 in the morning, I placed the final closing stitch. Monica's vitals were stable. Her pressure had improved. Her output was clear. She had made it through. Dr. Patel had been standing quietly in the corner the entire time. He pulled his mask down and looked at me. "Irene," he said softly, "that was flawless." Then he asked, "Do you want me to speak to the family?" I peeled off my gloves, dropped them in the bin, and washed my hands. Automatic, methodical, the same way I had done thousands of times before. "No," I said, "this one is mine." I caught my reflection in the scrub room mirror. Same face, same badge. But something inside me had shifted. For 5 years, I had been the daughter who disappeared from their lives. Now I was the surgeon who had just brought their other daughter through the most critical night of hers. Those two truths were about to meet in a waiting room 40 feet away, in front of my entire night shift team. I straightened my scrub top, checked my badge, took one slow breath, and walked toward the waiting room. The hallway had never felt longer. The waiting room had that strange hospital silence that happens around 7 in the morning. 2 other families sat far apart in the corners. A television murmured the weather to no one. And in the center row sat my parents, rigid, sleepless, terrified. I pushed through the double doors in my surgical scrubs. My mask rested around my neck. My scrub cap was off now, my hair pulled back. My badge hung clearly at chest level. Dr. Irene Woolette, MD, FACS, Chief of Trauma Surgery. My father stood first. He always stood first. It was instinct for him, the need to take control of the room. "Doctor," he said quickly, "how is she? Is Monica—" Then he stopped. His eyes fell to my badge, then rose to my face, then dropped back to the badge again. I watched recognition move through him like a physical shock. It started in his hands, then reached his jaw. My mother looked up half a second later. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then her hand flew to my father's forearm and gripped it so tightly that her fingers dug into the fabric of his sleeve. I would later hear that she left 4 small bruises there, each one shaped like a fingertip. 5 seconds of silence. 5 seconds holding 5 years. I spoke first. Calm, professional. The same voice I used with every family in that room. "Mr. and Mrs. Woolette, I'm Dr. Woolette, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Your daughter Monica sustained a severe abdominal injury in the accident. The surgery was successful. She is stable and currently in the ICU. You should be able to see her in approximately 1 hour. Mr. and Mrs. Woolette, not Mom, not Dad." I watched those words land. I watched them hurt. Behind me, through the glass partition, Linda and 2 nurses were watching. From their faces, I could tell they had already understood exactly what this moment was. My mother moved first. She took 1 step toward me, her arms starting to lift, a sob already breaking through her voice. "Irene," she whispered. "Oh my God, Irene." I stepped back. Only half a step, polite, controlled, impossible to misunderstand. She froze. Her hands stayed suspended in the space between us for a moment. Then, slowly, they dropped back to her sides. My father's voice sounded rough, like he had to force every word out. "You're a doctor." "I am." "You're the chief." "I am." "But Monica said—" He stopped. I looked at him. "Monica said what exactly?" His mouth opened, then closed again. I could almost see his mind trying to rebuild 5 years of certainty while every piece of it fell apart in front of him. My mother was crying now, not quietly, not in the controlled way she usually did when people were watching. "We thought you left school," she said. "We thought she told us you were—" "She told you I left medical school," I said. "She told you I was involved with someone dangerous. She told you I had nowhere stable to live. She told you I refused to contact you." My voice stayed calm. No shaking, no tears. I had imagined this conversation 1,000 times, in the shower, in the car, in the dark, when sleep would not come. I just never imagined I would be having it in hospital scrubs, under fluorescent lights, right after saving Monica's life. "None of it was true," I said. "Not one word." Behind the glass, I saw Carla press a hand to her mouth. Dr. Kimura, one of my second-year residents, turned away with his jaw tight. Linda lowered her clipboard and stared. My father tried to take control again. Old habit. "This is not the time or place, Irene. Your sister is in the ICU." "I know," I said. I just spent 3 hours and 40 minutes making sure she would survive. So yes, Dad, I know exactly where she is. He had no answer. For the first time in my life, my father, the man who always had a final word ready, had nothing to say. And somehow, that silence said more than any apology could have. 5 years of blocked calls, returned letters, ignored emails. None of it had been enough to make them question the story they chose to believe. But standing there in front of them, alive, accomplished, and wearing the truth on my badge, was louder than every message I had ever sent. My mother reached for the back of a chair to steady herself. "The letters," she whispered. "You said you sent letters." "2 emails," I said. One had my official leave of absence paperwork attached. I included the dean's direct number. Then I sent a handwritten letter by priority mail. She looked at me like she already knew what I was going to say. "You sent it back unopened," I continued. "I recognized your handwriting on the envelope." She pressed her fist to her mouth. My father stared at the floor. "I called 14 times in 5 days," I said. "I asked Aunt Ruth to speak to you. You told her to stay out of it." I was not shouting. I was not accusing. I was simply stating what happened. Facts do not need to be loud. Then Linda appeared at the door. She did not know the full story. Not yet. But she had hospital business to deliver. "Dr. Woolette, I'm sorry to interrupt," she said. "The board chair saw the overnight trauma log. He asked me to pass along the selection committee's congratulations on tonight's surgical outcome." She said it like any normal hospital update. She had no idea she had just dropped another truth into the room. My mother looked at me through swollen eyes, still standing there in her bathrobe. "Selection committee?" she whispered. "It's an internal recognition," I said. "It's nothing." Then I turned to Linda. "Thank you. I need to check postoperative vitals." I looked back at my parents. "Excuse me." And then I walked toward the ICU corridor with measured steps and a straight spine. I did not look back. But I heard my mother's voice behind me. Small. Shaken. "Jerry, what have we done?" And then I heard something I had never heard from my father before. Nothing, because for the first time silence was the only honest thing he had left. 4 hours later, I entered ICU room 6. The monitor beeped steadily beside the bed. Pale morning light slipped through the blinds. Everything about the room looked ordinary, routine, controlled, except nothing about this was ordinary. I was there for the standard post-operative assessment. Vitals, drainage output, wound check, neurological response. The same things I checked on every patient. But this patient was Monica. Her eyes were open, still glassy from anesthesia, still unfocused, but open. She blinked at the ceiling, then at the IV pole. Then her gaze shifted toward me. She narrowed her eyes, read my badge, then read it again. The color left her face so quickly I almost reached for the monitor. "Irene." Her voice was barely there. "Good morning, Monica," I said. "I'm your attending surgeon. You sustained serious internal injuries from the accident. Surgery went well. You're stable and your recovery looks promising. You're a doctor." It was not a question. It was the sound of 5 years catching up to her all at once. "I'm the chief of this department," I said. "I have been for 2 years." I watched the truth move through her. The same way it had moved through Dad, only slower, because Monica was still half under medication and waking up to a reality she could not control. First came confusion, then disbelief, then fear. And then I saw it, that familiar flicker behind her eyes, calculation. Even here, lying in a hospital bed with my stitches holding her together, Monica was already searching for a way to reshape the story. "Irene," she whispered, "listen." "I can explain," Monica whispered. "You do not need to explain anything to me." I nodded toward the glass door, where my parents stood in the hallway watching us. Their faces looked shattered. Their eyes were red. "You need to explain it to them." Then I updated her chart, checked the drain, and left the room without another word. I did not stay to hear what happened next, but the ICU floor heard enough. Monica's room was not soundproof, and neither was the truth. Now I have to pause for a second. What do you think Monica told my parents when they walked into that ICU room? Option A, she finally told the truth. Option B, She tried to protect the lie again. Option C. She turned herself into the victim. Drop your answer in the comments. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time, because the next part is where everything finally starts to fall apart. I found out what happened later from Linda, who heard it from the ICU nurse, who had heard enough through the glass to understand exactly what was going on. If you chose option C, congratulations. You understand my sister. The moment my parents entered the room, Monica started crying. Not soft tears. Big, dramatic sobs that made the monitors react and forced the nurse to glance toward the door. "Mom, Dad, you have to believe me," she said. "I never meant for it to go this far. I was scared for her." My father stood at the foot of the bed. His voice was tight, like he was holding himself together with both hands. "Monica, Irene is a surgeon. She is the chief of trauma surgery at this hospital." "I did not know that." "She said she sent letters," my mother said quietly. "Emails. She said she called 14 times. She said she asked Ruth to speak to us." Her voice was empty. "Is that true?" Monica looked away. "She is exaggerating. You know how Irene can be." "Ruth tried to tell us," my father said. This time his voice broke, not from sadness, from the collapse of something he had believed for 5 years. 2 years ago, Ruth told us Irene was in residency. She said she was becoming a surgeon. You told us Ruth was making things up. You said she was just trying to create problems." Monica swallowed. Ruth did not know the whole story. My mother stood so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. "Then what is the whole story, Monica?" Her voice carried into the hallway. The nurse at the station looked up. A visitor 2 rooms away froze with their phone in their hand, and Monica, trapped in a hospital bed with IVs in both arms and my stitches holding her together, did what she had always done. She shifted from defending herself to attacking me. "Fine," she snapped. "She is a doctor, good for her, but she still abandoned this family." "She could not call us because we blocked her number," my father said. His hand gripped the bed rail. "Because you told us to." The monitor kept beeping. The IV kept dripping, and Monica, maybe for the first time in her adult life, had no script ready. Aunt Ruth arrived at the ICU at 9:45 that morning. I had called her from the scrub room after surgery, not to drag her into the middle of it, not to use her against anyone. I called because Monica was her niece too, and Ruth deserved to know what had happened. But Ruth did not arrive empty-handed. 5 years of silence can turn into something powerful when it belongs to a woman with patience, records, and a very long memory. She did not sit. She did not hug anyone. She stood in the middle of that room and said, "I have been waiting 5 years to have this conversation, and I am not waiting another minute." Then she took out her phone. Later I found out she had saved everything in a folder labeled Irene Proof. Inside were screenshots of the emails I had sent my parents during those first desperate days. The official leave of absence paperwork from Oregon Health and Science University, signed by the dean and marked by the registrar. My re-enrollment confirmation, a photo from my residency graduation, me in my cap, holding my diploma, Aunt Ruth standing beside me, the only family member in the picture. Ruth held out the phone. My mother took it with shaking hands. "And here," Ruth said, swiping to a text thread, "is a message Monica sent me 4 years ago." She read it out loud. "Don't tell Mom and Dad about Irene's residency. It will only confuse them. They are finally at peace." The room went silent. Monica stared at the ceiling. Her jaw was tight, but that calculating look was gone from her eyes. In its place was something I had never seen on her face before, the look of someone who had finally run out of places to hide. "You told me to stay quiet for the family's sake," Ruth said, looking straight at Monica. "But this family has not had peace. This family has been living in the dark for 5 years." Then Ruth turned to my parents. "And you two allowed it. Not because you did not love Irene, but because believing Monica was easier than questioning her." No one argued. There was nothing left to argue with. My mother sank into the chair beside Monica's bed, but she was not looking at Monica anymore. She was scrolling through Ruth's phone, reading my emails one by one. Her lips moved silently as she read. Then she stopped on the last one, the email I had sent the night before my residency graduation. I remember every word. I have read that email 100 times in my own sent folder. Mom, I don't know if you will ever read this. I graduated from residency today. I wish you were here. I am still your daughter. I never stopped being your daughter. My mother folded forward in the chair. She was not just crying anymore. It had gone beyond that. It was the sound of a person finally feeling the full weight of a mistake they could never take back. My father stood by the window with his back to the room. His shoulders were shaking. Aunt Ruth told me later it was the first time she had ever seen her older brother cry in 62 years. Not at their mother's funeral. Not when his business almost collapsed. Not once. But now he cried silently, facing the parking lot, while the monitor kept beeping behind him. Monica lay in the bed and said nothing. The IV kept dripping. Her eyes stayed fixed on one spot on the ceiling. There was nothing left for her to perform. No audience left to believe her. The version of herself she had built for 35 years was finally falling apart, and no amount of charm, tears, or carefully chosen words could put it back together. "You missed her wedding, Jerry," Ruth said quietly. Her voice sounded tired now. "Nathan's father walked her down the aisle. Do you understand what that means?" My father did not turn around, but he spoke. 4 words, low and broken. "What have we done?" It was not really a question. He was not asking anyone to answer. He already knew. But knowing the truth and knowing what to do with it are 2 very different things. I came back that afternoon at the end of my shift. 22 hours since the pager had pulled me out of bed. But who was counting? My parents were still there. Of course they were. Where else would they go? Back to the house where, for 5 years, they had pretended they only had one daughter. The moment I walked in, my mother stood. Her face was swollen. Her eyes were almost shut from crying. "Irene, baby," she said, "I am so sorry, I am so—" I raised my hand, gently, firmly. "I hear you," I said, "and I believe you are sorry. But sorry is only a word. It can be a beginning, but it is not enough by itself. What I need is time." My father turned away from the window. He looked like he had aged 5 years since that morning. "We want to make this right," he said. "Then you need to understand something." My voice stayed steady. This was not rage. It was clarity, the kind that only comes after every other emotion has burned itself out and leaves the truth standing in its place. "I am not the girl you shut out," I said. "I am not the girl who begged you to listen for 5 days from 3,000 miles away. I am someone who built an entire life without you." Neither of them spoke. "And if you want to be part of that life now, it will happen on my terms. Not Monica's, not yours, mine." My father opened his mouth. Old habit. Then he closed it again and nodded, a small, devastated nod. I looked at Monica in the hospital bed. Her eyes were open, watching me. "When you recover," I said, "you and I are going to have a real conversation. But not today. Today you are my patient. I do not mix the two." Then I left. My back straight, my steps calm. I did not turn around. I was not closing the door forever. But I was the one who would decide when it opened, how wide it opened, and who was allowed to walk through. 2 weeks later, Monica was discharged. Her incision was healing. The rest of her was not. I chose the place, a coffee shop in Middletown, halfway between her apartment and my house, neutral ground. Nathan came with me, but he sat at a separate table near the window, pretending to read legal briefs. Actually, knowing Nathan, he probably was reading them. Monica walked in looking like someone had taken the center out of her. She had lost weight. Recovery can do that, so can guilt. And the confidence she used to wear like perfume was gone. For the first time I could remember, my older sister looked exactly her age. She sat across from me, wrapped her hands around a cup she never drank from, and stared at the table. I did not waste time. "I am not going to yell at you," I said. "I am not going to list every lie. You know what you did. What I want to know is why." The silence stretched long enough for the barista to call someone's name across the room. Finally, Monica spoke. Quietly. "Because you were going to become everything I wasn't," she said, "and I could not handle it." I let those words sit between us. "That is honest," I said. "That might be the first honest thing you have said to me in 10 years. Her eyes filled. "I am sorry, Irene. I know you are, I said. But sorry does not give me those years back. Sorry does not put Dad at my wedding. Sorry does not undo the box Mom sent back to me with my old graduation things inside, like I no longer belong to the family. Monica looked away. The tears in her eyes were real. I knew the difference by then. Then she said something I had not expected. I also called your medical school twice, she admitted. I tried to get them to cancel your leave of absence. I told them you had made up the caregiver paperwork. The coffee shop kept moving around us. The machine hissed. Cups clinked. People laughed softly at nearby tables. I just stared at her. Your dean would not listen to me, Monica said. He protected you. He did not protect me, I said. He believed the truth. That is not the same thing. I leaned back in my chair and took one slow breath. This was the part I had planned the night before, sitting on the kitchen floor with Ipo's head in my lap while Nathan helped me think through every word like it was a closing argument. I am not cutting you out of my life, I said, but there will be conditions. Monica nodded, small, defeated. You will tell the truth, I said, the full truth, to every family member you lied to. Every aunt, every uncle, every cousin who had spent 5 years believing I was in a recovery program or living without a stable home deserved to know the truth. You will correct every single version of the story, I said. I will, Monica whispered, and you will do it in writing. One email to the family group, all 47 people. Aunt Ruth will confirm that everyone receives it. Monica nodded again. The next week I met with my parents separately. Nathan drove me. We sat at their kitchen table, the same table where my father had read my acceptance letter all those years ago. The same table where Monica had smiled at me with only her mouth while her eyes planned something entirely different. I am open to rebuilding, I said, but both of you need to go to family counseling, not for me, for yourselves. My father's face tightened. You need to understand why you believed the worst about your own daughter and never once picked up the phone to confirm it. His jaw locked. We do not do that in this family. That, I said calmly, is exactly why we are sitting here. My mother placed her hand on his arm. Jerry, she said softly, please. He looked at her, then he looked at me. Something behind his eyes shifted. Not fully, not enough, but something cracked open. Fine, he said. I stood to leave, then stopped at the doorway and turned back. One more thing, I said. Nathan's father walked me down the aisle. That happened. None of us can undo it. My mother lowered her eyes. But if you want to know your future grandchildren, you start now. Not with dramatic promises, with consistency. I let the words settle. Apologies fade, boundaries do not. That is the difference between emotion and structure. 1 month later came the Physician of the Year Gala. 200 people filled the ballroom of the Hartford Marquis Hotel. Surgeons, department heads, hospital executives, board members, donors. Crystal glasses chimed softly, name tags hung from lanyards, a string quartet played in the corner, though almost no one was really listening. I wore a simple black dress. Nathan sat at the front table looking like he had been born in a suit. Maggie Thornton sat beside him, arms crossed, wearing the smallest smile. It was the kind of smile she saved for moments she had quietly been preparing for a very long time. The host stepped up to the podium. This year's Physician of the Year is a surgeon whose clinical excellence, calm under pressure, and dedication to her patients have set a new standard for this institution. Dr. Irene Woolette, Chief of Trauma Surgery. The room filled with applause. Then people stood. My surgical team rose first, the people who had seen me work through the impossible hours, the hard cases, the moments where everything depended on steady hands and a clear mind. I walked to the stage, the spotlight warm against my face, the podium solid beneath my hands. I kept my speech short. 5 years ago, I almost stopped. Not because I could not do the work, but because I lost the people I thought I needed in order to keep going. The room grew quiet. What I learned is that the people you need are not always the people you are born to. Sometimes they are the people who choose you. I looked at Maggie, then at Nathan, then at my team in the third row. Finally, my eyes moved to the back of the ballroom. The last row. 2 seats Aunt Ruth had quietly arranged. My parents were sitting there. My mother wore a navy dress she had probably bought that week. My father wore a tie he clearly hated. Both of them sat with their hands folded in their laps, looking up at me with expressions I can only describe as grief and pride, fighting for space on the same face. And sometimes, I continued, the people you are born to find their way back late. I paused. But they find their way back here. My mother covered her mouth. My father stood. The applause filled in everything else. After the gala, my father found Nathan near the coat check. He stood in front of my husband for a long moment before speaking. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I should have been the one." Nathan, gracious in a way I still admire, extended his hand. "With all due respect, sir," he said, "you should have been a lot of things, but we are here now." They shook hands. My father's eyes were red. He did not let go right away. Monica sent the email on a Wednesday night. Aunt Ruth confirmed that it had gone to all 47 addresses. I did not read it until the next morning. Nathan brought me coffee and placed the laptop on the kitchen table without saying anything. He knows when I need space. The email was 3 paragraphs. No excuses, no dramatic language. Just the truth, finally written plainly. Monica admitted that she had lied about me leaving medical school. She admitted that she had created false evidence. She admitted that she had kept the deception alive for 5 years. She admitted that she had deliberately kept our parents from learning the truth. She ended with one sentence that made me sit completely still. "Irene never abandoned this family. I made sure everyone believed she did. That is entirely on me." The responses came in waves. Uncle Pete's wife called Aunt Ruth in tears. She had repeated Monica's story about me being in a recovery program at a book club 2 years earlier and now felt sick over it. Cousin David in Vermont replied to Monica with one line, "I do not know who you are anymore." Then, Nana June called me. My grandmother was 89, the matriarch of the family, the woman who had stopped asking about me at Thanksgiving because Monica had told her the subject was too painful. When I answered, her voice was trembling. "Irene," she said, "my girl, I should have asked anyway." "I am 89 years old," she said, her voice thin with age but sharp with anger. "And I have never been deceived so completely by my own family. Irene, please forgive an old woman for not seeing what was right in front of her." "There is nothing to forgive, Nana," I said softly. "You were misled. We all were." No one organized a family campaign against Monica. No one sent dramatic group messages saying she was no longer welcome. There was no official announcement, no public rejection. But the trust she had collected over 35 years, the trust she had used like currency, was gone. You could feel it in the silence after her email, in the replies that never came, in the invitations that quietly stopped arriving. No one had to punish Monica. They simply stopped believing her, and for someone who had built her entire life around being believed, that was consequence enough. My parents began counseling in February with a therapist in West Hartford named Dr. Rena. She was calm, direct, and apparently the kind of woman who did not let people hide behind vague answers. My mother responded to it almost immediately. She had been carrying her silence like a stone in her pocket for years, and the first time Dr. Rena gave it a name, enabling through silence, my mother broke down in that office and cried for 40 minutes. That is what Ruth told me. I was not there, and I did not need to be. That was their work to do, not mine to witness. My father had a harder time. He went to the sessions. He sat in the chair. He answered questions with as few words as possible, but he kept going. Dr. Rena told him, according to Ruth, that his need to always be right had helped hold the whole disaster in place. His refusal to question a decision once he had made it had become one of the strongest walls around Monica's story. Monica gave them the lie, but my father's pride helped turn it into reality. And for once, he did not argue. That might have been the first real sign of change. 3 weeks into counseling, my mother mailed me a handwritten letter. The irony was not lost on either of us. "I failed you," she wrote, "not only when I believed Monica, but every time I chose peace over fairness. Every time I allowed your father's anger to decide what was true. Every time I saw you standing quietly in the doorway and told myself you were fine, because it was easier than admitting I was not brave enough to fight for you." I read the letter at the kitchen table. Ipo was asleep across my feet. Nathan was in the next room pretending not to listen. I did not cry, but I held that letter for a long time. Then I opened the drawer where I keep the things that matter. Sarah's card, my returned letters, the wedding invitation that came back unopened, and I placed my mother's letter inside. Same drawer, different side. Progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just changing where you place the things you carry. Monica started therapy too, separate from the family sessions. I know because Ruth told me and because Monica mentioned it herself during our second coffee meeting. We have had 3 of those meetings now, each one short, each one uncomfortable, each one a little more honest than the last. The first time, she mostly stared at her hands and said nothing that mattered. The second time, she told me she had started therapy. The third time, she said something that actually reached me. "I do not expect you to forgive me," she said. "I do not even know if I deserve it. But I want you to know I am trying not to be that person anymore." I took a sip of coffee, set the cup down, and looked at her. "Then show me," I said. "Words have always been cheap in this family. Show me with time." She nodded. She did not push. She did not perform. That was new. Do I believe her? Honestly, I do not know. I have spent my entire life learning to recognize Monica's performances, and I am still not sure where the performance ends and the real person begins. Maybe she is not sure either. Maybe that is what therapy is for. But I believe change is possible. That is all I can offer right now. Monica carries the mark of my surgery on her body, 7 inches across her upper abdomen, slowly fading from red to pale over time. Every time she gets dressed, every time she sees herself in the mirror, she will see the reminder left by the sister she tried to remove from the family story. The sister who, when everything came down to one moment, held steady hands and chose her oath over her anger, and I carry what she did in my memory. 5 years of silence, still lodged somewhere deep in my chest. In the strangest and most painful way 2 sisters can be, maybe we are even now. And maybe, with enough time, real time, quiet time, consistent time, we can find our way to something that is not exactly forgiveness, not exactly closeness, but something new, something better than what we had before. I am sitting in my office at Mercy Rest now. It is late. The hallway outside is quiet, wrapped in that strange hospital stillness that comes after the last visitors leave and before the full rhythm of the night shift takes over. My nameplate is on the door. My diplomas are on the wall, not because I need to look at them, but because the residents do. They need to know what is possible. They need to see proof that a person can survive losing almost everything and still build something strong. On my desk, there is a framed wedding photo. Nathan, Maggie, Aunt Ruth, 30 guests, a backyard glowing in soft October light. My parents are not in that picture, but on the bookshelf beside it, there is a newer photo. It was taken 3 weeks ago. Mom and Dad are standing on my front porch in their winter coats, looking a little uncomfortable and a little lost. Dad has his hands in his pockets. Mom is smiling too hard, like she is trying not to ruin the moment by wanting too much from it. It is awkward. It is imperfect. But it is real. And real means more to me now than perfect ever could. So if you are watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, whether you were the person who was never heard or the person who refused to listen, I want you to understand something. The truth does not expire. It does not matter whether it takes 5 days or 5 years. Truth has a quiet way of arriving exactly when it is needed most. You cannot force it to arrive early, but you cannot run from it forever either. I did not get payback against my sister. I did not need to. I became a person who no longer needed payback at all, and in the end, that was the strongest answer I could have given. Not a plan, not a scheme, just a life built fully, honestly, and completely on my own terms. And if you are still waiting for your family to finally see you, really see you, please hear me. Stop waiting. See yourself first. Build the life you deserve with the people who actually show up. And when the others finally turn around and come looking for you, let them find a door that you control. You decide when it opens. You decide how wide it opens. You decide who is allowed to walk through. That is not revenge. That is architecture. Sunday morning, the first week of February. Light snow is falling outside my kitchen window. Not the heavy kind that piles up on the driveway, just the soft kind that makes the whole world look like it is being gently forgiven. I am making French toast. Nathan is grinding coffee beans and singing off-key to whatever is playing on the radio. Hippo is under the table, full of hope and waiting for crumbs. Then the doorbell rings. I wipe my hands on a towel and open the front door. Mom and Dad are standing on the porch in their winter coats. Dad is holding a bottle of orange juice like he is not completely sure what to do with his hands. Mom has a tin of homemade shortbread cookies, the same ones she used to make for every school event Monica had, and never for mine. "Hi?" Mom says. Her voice is nervous, hopeful. I step aside. "Come in," I say. "Coffee is almost ready." Dad walks into the kitchen and looks around slowly, like he is trying to understand a whole life he almost never got to know. The house, the photos, the dog, the husband, the daughter who kept going without him. He clears his throat. "Can I help with anything?" I look at him, my father, 62 years old, standing in my kitchen for the first time, asking permission to be useful. "You can set the table, Dad." He nods. I point him toward the cabinet. He takes out the plates, counts them, then looks back at me. "4?" "4." He places them on the table one at a time, carefully like they might break if he is not gentle enough. Nathan hands him coffee. Mom comes over and hugs me while I stand at the stove. It is not one of those dramatic movie hugs. There is no music swelling, no perfect speech, no instant healing. It is quiet. Her arms around me, her forehead against my shoulder. No words, just holding on. Hippo's tail thumps against the floor. Snow keeps falling outside. The French toast sizzles in the pan. It is not perfect. It is not the childhood I deserved. It is not the kind of clean, beautiful ending people imagine when they think about family finding its way back. But it is real, and real is more than I had for a very long time. My name is Dr. Irene Ulett. I am 32 years old. And finally, slowly, carefully, I am letting myself be someone's daughter again. 4 plates. It is a start. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, or someone you lost and somehow found again, leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. Would you have opened that door? And if you want to hear more stories like this, check the description for another one I think you will connect with. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time.